add this.
They call it a film file.
Wait, here we go. Turning on audio. Ready? Should.
Hello and welcome to this month's program. I'm Dennis Scully, the host of the Business of Home podcast. I'm also the curator of the Dialogues on Design series here at the New York School of Interior Design. Through subscriptions and sponsorships, these conversations raise money for our scholarship programs, including our Diversity Scholarship and our Pre-College Scholarship program, where we introduce interior design as a career path for young people from often underrepresented communities. I'm grateful to all of those who have helped make this series possible, and want to give special thanks to Holly Hunt, Kathy Doyle, Andrea Feinstock, Ellen Kravitz, Kravitz Inc., Peter Benoyer, Cynthia Murphy, and Gil Schaefer. Your generosity is greatly appreciated by the school and by the students. Tonight we have the thrill of coming to you live from the offices of the award-winning design firm Drake Anderson. And we're joined by the firm's partners, the legendary Jamie Drake and Caleb Anderson, as we discuss the launch of their new book, Bold. Gentlemen, thank you so much for having us.
We boldly welcome you.
Well, we boldly invited ourselves over, and we appreciate you letting us come and visit. And we're thrilled to discuss the new book. I want to set up for our audience so they understand the history of this relationship and this partnership. How far into this partnership are we right now, Jamie?
We're just coming up on the 7th year.
Okay, 7th year. Does it feel like that long for you, Caleb?
It's gone by fast.
It has, right?
7 years, yeah. It's gone by really fast.
So many people know the fun part of this story is that young Caleb, college internship program, right?
Correct.
Comes to work for the firm, goes back to school, back to Texas. You later offer...
Not too long after,
Right.
I think it was a year and a half after,
Okay.
I offered him a job.
Yes.
To work directly with me as my assistant.
Mm.
And I had never actually had someone dedicated just to me. And that was a very wonderful experience for 3 years.
Right. Now, I'm told, Caleb, that there was some hesitation initially on your part about leaving Texas, and that maybe your dad had to twist your arm a little bit, telling you, if Jamie Drake offers you a job in New York. Did I understand that correctly?
I think he definitely saw the opportunity. You know, it's New York at the time. You know, it was like a dreamland. You know, it seemed kind of like a distant, kind of unattainable place, and it was a big move.
It was a big leap for you.
Do I remember correctly when you came to do the internship? Was it your first time in New York?
It was my second time. I had been once before, several years before. But New York was like a whole another world.
Yes.
And a lot of it takes kind of leaving it and coming back to it, and you're kind of pulled back into that. Like I live here and I work here. And, it's a pretty magical place.
Yeah. So you did say yes to Jamie's job offer and came to work for him,
yes.
right? And then went to another firm, right?
So
Went to work for an architect for a time.
I briefly worked for another architect, and when I was there, I can't say that I had an intention of starting my own business. It just kind of happened. I had a side project, which I think technically you're not supposed to do, but one side project turned into 2, turned into 3, and I was like, okay, well, I'll give this a go. And pretty quickly had some success, and I was doing a lot of stuff and getting some press and had clients and was doing show houses and wore many hats. But I do think that experience was critical, because you have to sort of take on all of these responsibilities. A lot of times when you're working in a firm, and this is something that I always tell to designers and students and people kind of up and coming, it's important to be outside of your role and ask questions and observe, and that's something that I definitely always did. So when it came time, to have my own business, I had some vague awareness of kind of what I was getting into.
Yes.
So that was helpful, just always being inquisitive and wanting to know more and see more than just kind of the immediate role that you're in.
Well, and so meanwhile, Jamie, closely monitoring your success.
Impressed by it.
Right? And by all you were doing and the show houses and the way you were marketing yourself, I know made a big impression on you, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Jamie wasn't sure that afternoon where he invited you to lunch that you were going to say yes, right?
I certainly didn't expect he would say yes right then and there. I would at least accept, wow, thanks, let me sleep on it, let me think about it, I don't know. But Caleb was pretty enthusiastic right there.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly was not something I had ever contemplated, completely unexpected. But, you know, I think it made a lot of sense just in terms of, you know, having access to infrastructure and kind of a different level of clientele. And, you know, in a lot of ways, partnership offers a lot. You know, we were talking about this earlier today, just in terms of, you know, everyone has strengths, and to be able to utilize the strengths of two people to have, you know, a stronger outcome, I think is powerful.
Well, so recently, just a few weeks ago, we were in the philanthropy offices of Mike Bloomberg, who was feting you and your new book. And he made some very charming remarks, and honestly, he was in really good form. You obviously bring out the best in him, your long-term relationship. But when you took the podium, Jamie, you said this book wouldn't have been possible without Caleb.
Absolutely.
And represented much of what Caleb has brought to the operation and to the office. So tell us about that.
Well, Caleb has, as he just said, we each have great strengths, and we each have strengths that cover some of the other areas of the other of us. And Caleb is wonderful on photo shoots. He's much more detail-oriented, I would say, than I am with them. And might drive the photographers a little crazy, probably. But, you know, I think that having two people standing there poking the flowers is not necessary. And Caleb really shepherded all the photography, the new photography, through beautifully.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, a book is always a wonderful opportunity. When you have a project and you get it to the point of a photo shoot, you know, that's really an opportunity to make it a piece of art. And I know that may sound a little corny or cliche, but you can really perfect it in a way and memorialize it in a way that you want it to be seen from the angle, you know, with the pillow fluff just the right way, with the perfect flower.
And once it's in print, it is memorialized. It's there
forevermore. Exactly. These pillows look perfectly aligned, if I may say, on the cover.
Thank you.
Yeah. So nicely done.
It's so interesting when you do a shoot. You don't know what's going to end up as the cover shot.
Yeah.
And it's like, this one really did feel like the right cover shot to us, very strongly.
You feel like this is a good representation of you and.
It worked really well for the cover, certainly. You know, at the time we have all of these gorgeous photos. I can't say that I would have picked that one, but when we were, you know, working on the book and kind of looking at different cover options, it just worked so well. And I think the negative space allowed the title to really stand out. But yeah, it's a beautiful photo.
Well, it's interesting because in our earlier conversations, Caleb, you talked about one of the great strengths
an extraordinary editor. That's another great thing about partnership is there's a lot of checks and balances, and we review each other. I mean, even you know, an important email, it has two or three people reading it.
Which is really, you know, the number.
Right.
It really pays to have multiple people review important things.
Yeah. And I've caught some mistakes too. So.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, in a way, because this book is all projects since your partnership, I see this book as a celebration of your partnership and of the success of your partnership. And we all know that many partnerships aren't successful, and we've all seen them, and we all have colleagues that have tried to combine their skills and talents, and it hasn't always worked. What has made your partnership work?
I think mutual respect of each other's strengths, and the ability to listen.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, a big part of it is just being open to evolution, and, you know, our industry is rapidly changing. and just being kind of in tune to that is important. Even outside of our immediate partnership within our firm, there's a lot of people that bring great ideas and great contributions, and I think openness to that is critical.
I want to jump into some of the images in the book and talk about projects. But before I do, you just mentioned our industry rapidly changing, and we'll come back to. But I'm wondering what jumps out at you the most when you say that.
Gosh, there's so much. I mean, I think in recent years, we have adjusted everything from how we actually do presentations to what the deliverables are in presentations. I mean, through COVID alone, we figured out how to present virtually, and now we do much more so even when we don't have to. I think clients' expectations have shifted. I think that the financial kind of fee part is getting a little bit more tedious to figure out. I think in our firm, one of the biggest things that we're starting to embrace is healthier materials, sustainability, all of these considerations that we should all be having in design, and how that marries to our aesthetic, a fine, artful aesthetic, and what that connection is. And actually, we hired a healthy materials consultant. So it's interesting to kind of see in the industry, who's stepping into that space, both in the design world, but also the manufacturing world, and who's a part of that conversation. And I certainly think kind of going forward, clients are becoming more aware, and, emerging clients are certainly more aware. So that's something that we're trying to embrace.
Well, and that's what I was curious about. If clients are asking for that more and are more aware of that, what do you think, Jimmy?
They're certainly open to it. I think if you present something to somebody and you say, here are two choices, and this is the healthy choice, nobody's going to say, oh, gee, I don't care about the healthy choice. I think
Right.
that it starts the conversation, it sparks it.
Yeah.
I think back, Dennis, to what was when we talked about, the rapidly changing industry. There's always something that's rapidly changing. Do you remember all the years it was about fee structures and closed or open showrooms?
Yes.
That doesn't pass anybody's lips anymore. I
Yes.
think that's a secure place where the profession has got to, is about that the fees we charge are for our expertise. I've always maintained we don't sell discounts, we
Right.
sell expertise and service.
Right.
And I think
Yeah.
the other thing that is so huge in the industry now, of course, is about really embracing diversity and equity. And between the two of them, those are the big things that have really evolved so happily and so excitingly in the industry.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really important conversation, and I hope that we're moving with all deliberate speed to address, as you say, some of the inequity and some of the things that we've had to face in the past few years.
Yeah, I mean, it's important. We even with the people that we work with are certainly trying to embrace and work with a more diverse group of fabricatons and talents and artisans. And I think in recent years we've had a lot of great success with that. And it's kind of part of elevating our practice is elevating the people we work with as well. And that's a lot of what we're trying to do. Even in the healthy material sustainability conversation I was telling you earlier, if we're working with an upholsterer who's made a sofa for years, we can now say, but can you make it this way, with this fill, out of these materials? Could you possibly apprentice this person? So it's kind of involving them in the conversation.
Yeah. And making clients aware of options, and everyone in the industry, honestly, needs to learn more about what the options are that are available. That faux leather made of cactus that you were showing me earlier is something a product that probably a lot of people don't know about yet, but that would be comfortable using it as an alternative if they knew about it. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think a huge part of our responsibility as designers is educating our clients and bringing it to their attention. And we've recently, one of the clients that we have completely pivoted into kind of going this direction, which was great, just based on what we were able to share with them.
It's an amazing story.
Well, and it's interesting because one of the reasons that Jamie told me early on he was excited about the partnership with you was where it might take the firm and take it into the future. and raise the level of the perception, right?
And there we didn't know what that future was.
Exactly.
I think, you know, a lot of it for me and a lot of people in our industry, you know, we have designed endlessly. You know, there's a lot of creativity and a lot of beauty, but it's, can that connect to higher purpose, greater purpose? Can it also, you know, be good for the environment, be good for other people? Like, beyond design, what else does it have to offer? And you know, for us as designers, it's okay, there are these now additional considerations that we need to embrace, and I think that that is the future, is design that is both beautiful and functional and purposeful. And I think that, you know, that's kind of where I'm at and where we're at and kind of what we're trying to do with the work that we do now. You know, and even with our team, you know, being in this conversation, having the healthy materials consultant, it's kind of reinvigorating, and that's exciting to see.
Yeah, no, that is exciting to see.
connect.
Okay, let's jump into the book because we've got some beautiful images to share with people.
Yeah.
Where do we start here?
Well, so the book, you know, we structured the book so that it has 11 full projects, some of which had never been published. I think there were 4.
Five had never been published before.
that had
5
never
projects that had
been
never been published.
Published, yes. And then interspersed within that are various abbreviated essays which are thematic. So, and they're thematic basically of adjectives that would be used, you know, of the work that's reflected in the book. So one of them would be confident. So this first slide that we're looking at here, it's a range of details really of just kind of when we think of confidence in our work, some of the gestures that we would make. So for example, you know, we love, even in a contemporary interior, to pull in an antique and give it a new personality. So you see there, the second image is an antique gilt chair that we put a contemporary fabric on. So that's kind of something that we like to do and create this interesting dialogue between the contemporary and traditional or classical pieces. And bold. Go ahead.
And then there's the beautiful in the lower corner against those strong blue walls, that beautiful 19th century English buffet.
Beautiful.
With its brass cutwork inlay. And then over it is a commissioned sculpture by Maya Lin, a wall installation that's so fascinating because it has a story as well, because it's about the coastline near the house. And so you have those dialogues, and then on top of it is this great hunky brutalist ceramic piece by Linda Benglis. So, you know, you've got things from modern artisans and against the antique.
Well, and not long ago, Jamie, you were a little frustrated that clients weren't willing to take the leap with some antiques. Yes, I mean, has that swung back
I think
a
we
little
both
bit?
are. I think we both wish more of our clients would embrace at least a few antiques.
Yeah.
Because they're so special, they're so unique, and of
Absolutely.
course,
Sustainable.
sustainable. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It all fits into the messaging that
Yes,
you want to.
but you know, there are clients who don't have any resonance. Antiques have no resonance for them.
I see.
And the pendulum always shifts stylistically, and assuming it will come back. But we do have projects where we do get to incorporate
Okay, you
things.
get to stick in one every once in a while.
Yes.
All right.
It's such a skill to be able to incorporate something like that, particularly today in kind of a contemporary environment, and make it connect and create that language.
And the skill takes confidence.
And the skill takes confidence, yes.
Love how you tied that together. Okay.
So this next chapter is exquisite.
Exquisite.
And we think often about the beautiful things that we get to work with, the beautiful materials and the beautiful handcraft and skills, whether it's hand beading, like on those beautiful golden ochre walls.
Yeah.
That was from a Kips Bay room we did together. The carving of a gilt, rather Baroque mirror, beautiful mirrored and glass. Specialty mirror, specialty glass, veriglamase panels and doors and walls, and then even semi-precious stones like those amethyst insets set into white Thassos marble in a client's foyer.
Yeah, it's the details that I love, that, you know, you can walk into a room and be like, wow, but when it has those layers that kind of want to be explored and understood, what is this material and how did they do that? And maybe it's a new technique, or maybe it's an old technique that's being incorporated in a new way. We love that. You know, we love to do that in our work. I like to make you talk about this.
Okay, so this one is sexy, and we think
Sexy.
that, sometimes sexy is definitely apparent to the eye, and other times it's more a subtle gesture that it's about embracing, about hugging, about the forms and the curves that come and embrace us. And so we do like to incorporate things that give a notion of sexiness.
Yeah.
I like it.
We love curves too. I mean, curves are so dynamic and they move and they kind of have this feminine energy. So you see a lot of curves in our work. Yeah, and so the next essay is spirit. So just kind of incorporating things, elements that reference nature. I think one common theme that you see in our work, whether intentional or unintentional, is this kind of galactic, cosmic vibe. And it can come through artwork.
And where's that coming from?
I don't know. I think it's about magic. Isn't when you look up at the moon, it's magic, like that beautiful painting, and again, back to the curves. This has so many curves in it, this page, these two pages, and the artwork, different artists, but again, very galactic.
I like things that feel otherworldly, kind of transporting, and there's some really interesting installations and pieces and artwork. We love Barbara Takanaga, and we use a lot of her artwork, and you always feel like you're in some sort of galaxy, when you're staring at one of her pieces.
And the gilded moons.
Yes, that was in my old apartment.
The old apartment, yes.
And then I think one of the things that we really love is to bring in a sense of joy and delight that'll put a smile on your face. So this is the chapter called Witty. And wit is a wonderful thing to bring in. I think that we're not
Always.
looking for Jackie Mason comedy, but we're looking for things that put a smile on your face and delight.
Right.
And even if what the efforts it takes and the design spirit that it takes to create these things, it should have a sense of levity about it at the same time.
Something that takes the edge off of a room. You're in a room that's so luxurious and so beautiful, and then you have a piece that's a little quirky. It kind of just takes the edge off, and it's a conversation starter. It's a piece that people walk in and they ask about it, or they're like, why is that there? But that's a good question.
Okay, so here we go, this fabulous dining room. So tell us where we are and what's going on here.
This is an apartment in Tribeca in the famous Jenga Tower, the Herzog and de Meuron building on 56 Leonard Street. And this was a project for clients we've done 5 projects for in total. This was the 5th to be completed, but the 4th to be started, because as we know, things can take different time frames. And this was a complex project because it was 2 apartments they bought before the building was up more than, I think, the 2nd floor. And this is very high up. And as it evolved, we fine-tuned the plan over the couple of years it took for the building to get up and close on it. And there were some very interesting challenges that led to great design solutions, such as the clients really didn't want to even lose 3-4 inches of ceiling height, which would have been required to move junction boxes for the chandeliers and things in the ceiling. So that started us with these lima bean shaped pads. And then that led us to some other things that we will see along the way.
Well, it was so funny because, as I shared with both of you, over the summer we had reached out to some of our subscribers asking what kind of conversations they might like to hear, and they were very keen to hear about challenges in your projects. And you said, oh, don't worry, every single one of these projects had a great many challenges. This one especially, with so many things that you couldn't move and had to build around.
Right. I mean, and this apartment and the whole building has these gigantic columns.
Yes.
Which are structural.
Right.
And we chose to celebrate them, and we clad them in this wonderful metallized, highly polished plaster that makes them even more bold and strong.
Right.
And
lean into them.
They repeat, right, lean into them. They repeat throughout the apartment. In that dining room, one of them was oval and the other one was round like the rest of the apartment. So we made the second one oval, so it was truly 2 columns that framed the view of the Hudson River.
Okay. See, here you have a little bit of wit with the Haas brothers.
Yes.
so many of the projects that we do, I mean, certainly here in New York, it's about the views. And so, clients are always concerned about the views, and they become so much of a part of the interior. So a lot of the furniture is low slung and sleek. And this particular area is the west great room. There's an east and a west great room. So this is
Nice.
adjacent to that dining area. We actually had a lovely dinner party there on last Wednesday, that we had about 16 people there, but we were in this space.
The best clients will let you throw a dinner party in their apartment.
Absolutely.
And they came, and they had a good time, and they were guests.
How nice.
And
Love that.
so what we took was 2 3-bedroom apartments and combined them, and thus reduced the number of bedrooms to 4.
Okay.
And this would have been the main bedroom in one of the apartments, which we turned into their home office, and designed a partner's desk. They like partner's desks, but they don't want to sit across from each other. They want to sit next to each other.
Okay.
And here they sat next to each other and looked out at this glorious New York skyline view north. And we designed a millwork behind the desks with steel cabinetry that's backed with mirror, so that the collection of antique cameras that he collects, that you could see the backs as well as the fronts in the mirror. And it works really well. And then we found this enormous 5-part painting, again by Barbara Takanaga, which just fit perfectly and is just totally galactic and magical.
The day we had the dinner, I actually saw them sitting together
Yes.
at this desk.
Yeah.
I wanted to take their picture.
Right.
It
They
was
really
cute.
use it.
They really,
Yeah.
sit side by side at their laptops. It was-
That's great, and he can be close to his collection and the view. I mean, that's spectacular.
So this is a small media room off of that office, just kind of a cozy, intimate area. But you can see, we're constantly thinking about details, and we pretty much in our work address every surface. There's some kind of finish, something going on, and you can see on the right side of the image, the TV is actually inset in an upholstered, kind of horizontal channeled installation that we did, which kind of added more interest and softness to the room.
I would take it a step further. We do address every surface, even if it just means painting it.
There you go. There you go. But I mean, really amazing pieces. This gorgeous table by Stefan Bishop in the foreground.
And as I said, we've worked for this client many times, and they
Right.
specifically requested that this apartment have a more dialed back palette, be pretty neutral, and yet we wanted to make sure it still had presence, so that like here you have this giant swoop of dark, beautiful blue on this curved sofa. Again, the curves, every form you see here almost is curved. On the right upper, you can start to see one of the ceiling platforms we did, which talked to the beams on the ceiling that flows throughout the apartment, and as well as it being curvaceous, it flares up towards the windows, so it sort of throws your eyes out to the view.
I think people a lot of times, your work's so shiny. You have a lot of shiny things in your work. But for me, it's really about reflectivity. Like, I love reflectivity and light bouncing around. So, there's a lot of metals, a lot of mixed metals here. I mean, gosh, there's bronze and polished brass and polished nickel, and it all works together, and it all kind of interacts really beautifully. And we love stone. This is a gorgeous stone. I think it's called Fior de Bosco.
It's beautiful.
And it's honed, so it's a little quieter.
Right, so it's a little softer. Yeah, no, it's muted, but I mean,
And
there's
this
so
is-
much going on.
And this is
Real-
the East Great Room. We've moved.
Yes.
So here is one of the great challenges we had. So when we did
Right.
the demolition, there were, in fact, chases and pipes and stacks that were immovable.
Yeah.
And so we had to come up with a device. What do we do? How do we solve this? And we ended up encasing them in these forest of trees. Now, 2 of the 3 have things in them. The third one is not, but 2 was not as good as having 3. It created much more of a sense of movement to have 3 of different sizes. And we were inspired by the sculpture of Arnaldo Pomodoro. So they sort of have these chiseled and eroded sections in the metal. And they spring out of what I call lakes, these 2 lakes that are lacquered, satin lacquered blue. Those hide more pipes that we could adjust, but they had elbows at 15 inches off the floor. So they are hidden in there.
I mean, one of the more dynamic things that we did in this apartment, besides the tree and ponds,
Right.
you know, the building that this is in is very linear, very rectilinear. But you know, our architecture within the apartment is actually very soft and curvy. Again, the curves. But we did this amazing detail or treatment on the ceiling, where in the center of the apartment, basically, it kind of curves out from both sides, and then in addition to that, there are these kind of swooping soffits, which you can get a sense of here, and a lot of it's illuminated beautifully with lighting. Thank you, Nathan Orsman.
Yes.
So at night, the lighting in this apartment is really dynamic in terms of highlighting those architectural details and features. So serene.
So serene, yes.
In the only room we didn't do the gray columns. Here we did the same finish, but in a kind of a pearl kind of finish, an off-white. And the walls are paper-backed application of a material that's a horsehair that has an iridescence of turquoise and apricot, and beautiful soft furnishings, a custom bed with a gainage, contemporary gainage, headboard and footboard details.
And I'll expand on that. So it's interesting how you look back at this work and you kind of think that you get on kind of kicks of things. So the gainage kick that we were on, you know, here we are in a contemporary apartment, and this is actually a kind of classical French technique where you wrap moldings in fabric. So, you know, typically there are these very dramatic, you know, canopy beds and things like that. But here we have this contemporary bed that we designed, and well, that'll work here. But it was actually really cool. It looks like a long cinnamon roll.
And did the client understand at first what you wanted to do and the reference?
You know, dialogues with clients of long standing go much more fluidly than not, and so
Right.
there's always that trust,
Okay, so
less
there's-
questioning.
Right. That's the nice thing about those nice repeat clients.
Right. So now we are looking at a more traditional / transitional project. It is in essence, it's traditional, but there are in every room contemporary elements that make sure you know you're not in a museum. This was a major restoration and renovation project. We actually lifted the whole house up on a web of steel. It's a masonry house, to be able to demolish the foundation and then excavate down, so that instead of going to the basement, they could go to the lower level and have all the functions they wanted there. In the foyer, we picked up the original early 20th century floor. We took the original stair rail off, put them away, sent them for restoration, and every molding and pilaster you see here, as it is throughout the house, is new. But it was based on what was there before, but we were able to make sure they were in perfect condition and not rotting and falling apart, but also improve the proportions a bit. We made them bigger and bolder than they had been previously. And the furnishings, I think, that you come into are emblematic of what happens throughout the house. Antique mirrors paired with antique sconces, hanging over contemporary commodes by Hervé van der Straten. This very beautiful Lichtenstein painting,
Yeah, very contemporary art.
which hangs behind that flying saucer thing that's fallen into the foyer, which is actually a piano.
It's funny to watch people walk into this room and they're like, "What is that? Is that a bar? Is that a is that a table? What is that?" It's a piano.
It's a piano.
But it actually opens. I think we have photos somewhere of it open,
Yeah.
at the top.
Well, the fact that you lifted the whole house was in and of itself. I mean, and
Right, and it required the house to be lightened, but that was easily done because the windows were going to be replaced anyway. Take out the windows.
Right. Okay. So you took out as much as you could to reduce the weight.
Everything was
so that you,
right, exactly.
Okay.
One thing I just kind of want to speak to, because it's very much the book, is the breadth of our work and the range of our projects. I mean, we just left a very, very contemporary, Manhattan high-in-the-sky apartment, and here we are in a traditional Georgian-style house. And yes, there are contemporary elements, but I think that's the amazing thing about what we get to do, is just the range of projects that we get to work on in a range of styles, and then still find ways to have this sort of common dialogue
We're definitely not an office where we say, okay, pull out scheme 14.
Yes, there's not a lot of cookie cutter
No,
copying the
we
same
really,
old going on here. Yeah.
Really create for each project from scratch. There may be a piece of furniture we like that that we've used a couple of times, but for the most part, it's all from scratch. Here in the dining room, the traditional table, which is one of 3 they have in the house, so they can do various sizes and scales depending on how they want to entertain and how many, sits under this beautiful commissioned chandelier, glass and polished bronze, that does lift hydraulically for when there are more tables in the room, so that people and staff don't get hit in the head.
Right.
The chairs are very much traditional chairs, but their boldness with their band of color at the bottom with the nail heads, traditional techniques, but in such a bold, graphic way. As discussed before, the myelin installation that was commissioned for these to go on these paneled walls over the antique buffet, and then a very strong Gerhard Richter that doesn't really look like a Richter, early Richter over the fireplace.
Your favorite room?
Well, that color on the wall is spectacular.
Right, so that beautiful corally colored Venetian plaster by Alpha Workshops. And the mantle in that room was original to the house, so when there was something that was worth keeping, we did keep it. Again, all the molding is new, but based on what was there. I think we lowered the chair rail, as I remember, the wainscot, to give the room more height. It was at a higher level. And here's a really eclectic combination that I think really talks about our passions for mixing things. The room is centered with this Vladimir Kagan Omnibus Series tete-a-tete, sitting on acrylic planks. There are English consoles on either side which support these very large-scale dramatic tang horses. The painting over the fireplace, which arguably the most important piece in a part of a house where a painting would go, is something that's actually an emerging artist and was not a terribly expensive piece. Underfoot is a giant coral-colored carpet, and then there's 2 seating groupings at either end that are symmetrical and asymmetrical at the same time. They're diagonalized the way we used pairs of chairs and things.
Yeah, I think, we work on a lot of large-scale rooms, these living areas. In fact, one of our projects, the developer refers to the living space as the Grand Salon, but even within those really large spaces, being able to create intimate seating groups and connect them all. Like here we have this tete-a-tete that kind of brings the 2 seating groups together, but it's a way to kind of create intimacy within these bigger spaces.
I love that Vladimir Kagan piece. Yeah.
And in the library, it's a new mahogany paneled library, very traditionally detailed, except for the bookcases themselves are completely wrapped in parchment, ivory parchment, so that it's much lighter, and especially at night it glows beautifully with all of the lighting integrated. Again, thank you, Nathan Horstman. And you can see that, again, an eclectic mix of furniture, 4 contemporary chairs by the fireplace surrounding a simple graphic ottoman, Art Deco chairs, a game table, an English game table. It's furnished for use and a variety of uses. And then this is a small media room off of the kitchen. So it's kind of a casual room with these contemporary paneled walls, if you will. And then that great Vic Muniz piece, Washington crossing the Delaware over the sofa. And again, something witty, that lamp, that 60s lamp. And in the primary bedroom, the client's favorite color combination was purple and orange. And so we reinterpreted that as sort of mango and kumquat. Mango and kumquat. I always find choosing the words to describe something gives it so much more magic when presenting to a client. And it's traditional forms, but the color story certainly is not traditional. The center window, centered on behind the bed, had been plasterboarded over by the previous owners, so there would be a proper bed wall. And there, the interaction with the client. The client was, open that window. It's almost like the Joan Crawford. Let a window be where a window wants to be, where a window was, but it had been
Yeah.
closed for 40 or 50 years. And we just floated the bed away from it because there's a beautiful view out to the gardens. And in her bathroom, there are his and hers bathrooms, looking through to her dressing room beyond where that wonderful orchidaceous color comes in. And the pool house, new construction that we added, we tore down, an addition that had been there, a bad sort of late 60s or early 70s garage with rooms overhead, and we burrowed into the ground and put in this beautiful open pool house with a wooden ceiling. And here we are,
So beautiful.
outside by the pool.
So
Yes.
cold in here, that looks really nice.
Doesn't that look nice and warm,
Yeah.
Caleb? Yeah. Sorry that it's so chilly here where we are.
I think the last project that we're going to look at is here in Manhattan. At the time, a new Robert Stern building. The clients, this wasn't their primary residence. They live on the West Coast, and I think they approached our firm because they wanted this sort of New York glamour, luxurious, feel that they had seen in our portfolio. And within the apartment, even though it was a new building, it was traditional-ish, like the kitchen and the millwork and things like that. So it wasn't a full-on renovation, but we did find opportunities to do these contemporary insertions. Some of them more major, like the kitchen we pretty much gutted. The bathrooms, we changed the vanities and did a more contemporary vanity. We also, you'll see here in a moment, in the entry in the gallery space, we did a really gorgeous stone floor with a brass inlay and an interesting pattern. But what we're looking at here is the elevator vestibule. And the clients wanted a pair of statement doors. So we had seen...
And they got them.
They got them, yeah. So a gorgeous pair of bronze doors with stones inset and obsidian and onyx and quartz. Very dramatic, by Gloria Cortina, who actually has a show right now at Christina Grajales. You should all go see it.
Who's being honored right as we speak, Christina Grajales.
Yes,
Oh.
love Christina. Yeah.
We supported it. We're just not
Fantastic,
there. We're
yeah.
with you.
Yeah, well, but we're thinking of her.
Yes.
Yes, and congratulating
She's
her.
really talented and a lovely person, and was lovely to work with on this commission. So here, stepping into the main living area, one of my favorite aspects of this apartment is it was so beautifully laid out. It had a wonderful logical flow. Parts of it almost had this enfilade of rooms, but it still felt contemporary in a way. So in the living room here, there's two distinct seating groups that we've connected with this very large tete-a-tete. The client loved jewel tones, so it's a somewhat neutral palette, but then you have these kind of rich purples. So on one side, you have this beautiful curved sofa and a velvet and the purple, and then on the other side you have the chairs, and then the sofa on this side is white and the chairs on this side are white, so it's very, very balanced.
And that keeps, again, the movement, the connection. Your eye connects as it moves around the room.
Right.
Yeah, and there's
Yeah.
ways, we look for ways to make connections with our design decisions that aren't cheesy or so literal here, but you can see this area rug that we have from Edward Fields in a way references the Doors, so we kind of look for ways to have those connections.
And it's interesting, the two chandeliers are cousins, or twins, but not identical twins. They're fraternal twins. And it's interesting, in other projects we've done where we've had rooms where we had needed two light fixtures, we've done
Right.
two of the same, but variants. And
Yes.
it makes it much more interesting again. It's more intriguing.
Yeah, so this client, they wanted multiple working spots in the apartment, so there's kind of desk situations everywhere. So behind this curved sofa, we designed a custom curved desk/sofa table. It's wrapped in leather, but kind of gives him a perching spot in that room to do work. And then you can see here in this image, looking towards the dining room, how all of this kind of connects. You can see where you're walking in from the gallery on the left, and then looking through the dining room on the right, and you have this gorgeous color that we've created this envelope with. And then we hired Sharon Loudon, who's an artist, to do this really beautiful lighting installation, which is actually crystal rods with little brass details and fiber optics. Very complex to install.
Sure.
but
Sure.
a really stunning result.
Well, and Caleb, I'm curious, and Jamie, I'm wondering, so many of your clients have vast art collections, and I'm wondering what role the art plays in decisions that you make, building around it, building to celebrate it. How does it?
It's rather interesting, and maybe we're in the very, very lucky position that most of these projects for our clients are not replacement residences.
Right.
They're additional residences.
Yes.
So they don't necessarily have things to put in them, and their things are being bought for.
Okay, so more things that you can acquire the art as you go, rather than them needing to incorporate their
Right.
collection.
Okay, sometimes there
Sure.
will be a piece of art and we can use it as a point of departure. Sometimes a client will have a collection and you have to maintain a flexibility that if it really is a collection that's moving around, how do you accommodate that? But certainly rooms without any art
Yeah.
don't come fully to life.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, it's definitely an important layer, and I mean, we've obviously had really fine pieces of art in our interiors, and some of it's more emerging artists, but we always try and work with the clients on that, and even if it's not, the piece is not part of the conversation in the beginning of the design process, we're still kind of planning where it would go, because now, you have to account for lighting and things like that.
Right, even if there isn't a piece, we always, when we're doing our original planning, we just determine what walls will have art, even if the art doesn't exist yet.
Yeah, so I'll keep this moving. I saw you looking at your watch.
I can hear producers in my ear.
Yeah. No, so this is the dining room, which we saw before from the living room. Obviously, here the clients wanted kind of a non-traditional layout, so we have this amorphic shaped table on an amorphic shaped rug, kind of at an angle, just to create kind of more interest, a more dynamic space. Going into the kitchen, which we did fully renovate, gorgeous materials. These cabinet fronts are one of my favorite details. They're actually kind of pyramid shaped, so they have some dimension. And this beautiful metallized oak, and we alternated the grain of the oak. As you move around the diamond, there's actually kind of a lot of, again, subtle diamond references in this.
It amplifies the actual three-dimensional quality.
I see.
So here, going into the main bedroom, beautiful upholstered headboard wall. It actually has a gorgeous beading, gunmetal beads that are embroidered on the upholstery. This client watches TV, so a lot of times what we encounter in these high-rise glass buildings is there's not a wall for the TV. So
Right.
here, we have this cabinet at the foot of the bed, which is quite the cabinet. It's wrapped in bronze. It has gypsum. Again, sort of the patterning references a floor pattern that's in the gallery. Gorgeous Lindsay Edelman fixture. Lovely seating group, very textural. That room to me is a good balance of feminine and masculine, just in terms of the palette and the textures and the choices. Here, this is the guest bedroom, which has the most color probably in the apartment.
And again, back to her love of jewel tones.
Yes.
So here it's emeralds.
Yeah, a really cozy, beautiful room, custom headboard that we designed. I think that's it.
Well, and as you've talked about in the past, I mean, people do associate you both with color, but I mean, there were a lot of very muted I mean,
Off-white, they're all colors.
well, but I mean, I feel like this book shows, as you were saying, quite a range. There isn't a...
I don't think we'd have fun if we did the same thing again and again and again, and we really do create and new things for everybody. And Caleb's apartment, his living room might have been more muted in its entirety, in its biggest amounts, but it had strong accents of color. It had a beautiful jewel-toned red dining room. It had a gorgeous citrine library. So color exists always somewhere.
I think designers and firms a lot of times get pigeonholed, but we do so many different things. We love playing in the neutrals and the colors.
Yeah. Well, so how do you want clients to think of you? So what do you want them to? I mean, this book is called Bold, and as you've talked about in the past, so many of your clients are self-made billionaires, as it turns out, and so that they are bold and they are adventurous. But I mean, what do you want clients to think of when they think of hiring you?
I want clients. I mean, first and foremost, to come to us with trust. But the conversation is very much to me about being willing to be pushed. You know, I think people come to us not to be safe, to know that they'll be pushed and that the decisions will be bold, they'll be interesting, they'll be creative. You know, beyond the creativity that we offer, we really pride ourselves on our client relationships and the level of service that we offer to our clients. You know, I think a lot of people getting into design don't actually realize that most of your time is not actually spent designing. You know, we're a customer service field, and client service is hugely important. And you can have the most beautiful ideas in the world, but if they're delivered poorly and with poor customer service, you don't have a very good design business.
Yeah. And you've talked about that so much that, I mean, everybody thinks it's all going to be about designing and drawing and pretty things, but really...
And often you have to, the biggest thing is to explain your ideas.
Yeah.
You know, you have our successful clients, our bold personality clients, they got there because they're decisive people. So they want somebody who's going to be decisive, but be able to convince them of that decision when they're making it and having it presented to them.
Yeah.
So, thinking about our design student audience, what do you think it's important for them to be thinking about as they think about coming out into the world and joining a firm? What's important to you when you're thinking about hiring? What do you want young designers to have as a skill set and a mindset?
Yeah,
I mean, I think confidence is important.
That was the word I would have in my mind.
Confidence.
Yeah, number one word.
You know, people that we interview or that, you know, we meet with, those that have confidence, you know, even if on paper their idea may not be the best, but you can understand it, they can sell it, you know, that has a lot of value. I think the other piece would be, you know, kind of what I was saying about myself, just having an interest beyond the sort of immediate role, you know, always kind of wanting to know or be a part of more. And I think that's critical just in professional development, because, you know, you will have people who, you know, they kind of stay within their role for years, and then you have some people that just rapidly kind of expand. So that's kind of interesting to observe, you know, just always kind of wanting to know more, continuing to develop professionally. You know, I think one thing that we look for and is important to me is people that want to be part of a team. You know, I think a lot of times in design, in firms or with designers, it's a lot of me, but being a part of something that's collaborative and realizing that, you know, if someone makes a mistake in our office, it's all our mistake. You know, it's kind of like, how do we learn from that? If someone does something really well, we celebrate them, but we also celebrate as a firm. And I think that that's important, to just have that mindset of that teamwork, collaborative aspect is really important now.
Well, and I know that you've talked about sometimes a designer in your office will be the lead designer on a project, and another time they won't necessarily be.
We got away with the sort of traditional structure of senior designer and junior designer. It was partly due just to kind of where we were with our staff at the time, but it's worked really well because everyone has some sense of ownership and some sense of responsibility, and we're able to pull people. You know, if one designer is really, really busy, we can pull someone else in, you know, to help with a presentation. And yeah, again, one designer may be lead on another project and just supporting on another. Of course, larger, more complex projects will go to more experienced people, but I think that's also a great way for them to develop professionally and to gain that confidence and to have that exposure. And it also kind of just, rather within the offices being so-and-so's project, and that's so-and-so's project, it's just kind of more connected, more collaborative, more ownership for the firm's work in general.
And that keeps everyone, you find, in the staff engaged. And
yes, definitely. There's a higher engagement level with that.
Yeah.
And I think they really do take great pleasure in touching more projects and being involved in more projects.
And helping each other.
Right, and it's natural that they will learn more that way.
Yeah.
And they'll see more.
Yeah. So, Caleb, you and I were talking as we wrap up and sadly have to go. We were talking earlier about, I know, you hate to see us go, but You were talking about priorities and sort of thinking about what the priorities are for your firm these days and what you're really focused on. What bubbles up for you?
I think it's bigger than our firm. I think that in general, we all kind of have to assess within the work we do and within a project what the priorities are. I mean, I was saying before, historically, it's budget, it's schedule, but these conversations of health and sustainability and all of these important things that we should be considering as designers, we have to start incorporating and getting our clients on board too. I think that there's kind of just a collective shift that needs to occur. And it really just starts with awareness. So, now if we're sourcing something or we're exploring a new material, it's not just, oh, that's pretty and it's durable. It's, who makes it and is it sustainable? Is it healthy? These are all questions. It's asking more questions. And I think that certainly, as we evolve as designers, that's definitely something that we have to incorporate and have awareness around and start being a part of.
Caleb's wellness message seems to really be resonating out there in the world.
Yes.
Right? And I feel like clients are much more open to this, and in a way, even more open to this health and wellness discussion than maybe they are to the sustainability conversation, and maybe we need to find out how to link them together.
It's all connected
together.
Right?
It's all connected. And that's one thing just kind of in my own learning. And, as I mentioned before, we have a healthy materials consultant. Now, it's all encompassing. There's
Right.
so many considerations, and it's all interconnected. A lot of times, if you are making a more healthy choice, it is in its nature also probably a more sustainable choice. So it's a big conversation.
Yeah.
It's not an overnight black and white kind of thing. But as I said before, I think people who are stepping into that direction, companies, manufacturers, firms, designers that are stepping into that direction are doing the right thing. And even from a business perspective, the current consumer to some extent, and certainly the emerging consumer, will expect this. And even Jamie, you were talking about how likely legislation,
Yes.
will impose some of these things on us anyway.
Just the way lighting has been, legislation, the requirements in New York City are enormous.
Oh,
and I
absolutely.
think that will roll out to all sorts of other things, like 1.6 gallon flush toilets. We've had those a long time. There are some things, but it will become a tidal wave.
But it's really actually exciting and inspiring because it's like a spark in creativity. It requires creativity. It requires innovation. And I think as an industry, that's something that we do really well, and collectively can make positive impact and change.
Well, great designers are great problem solvers.
Yes.
So we look to the two of you and to the industry to help move us forward with all of this. But I'm thrilled that this is such a topic of conversation.
Thank you, Dennis.
And I thank you so much for letting us come and spend time with you. It's been such a pleasure. And again, the book is bold. Thank you again for joining us for another installment of our Dialogues on Design series. We have an incredible lineup of guests, including Kia Witherspoon, David Kleinberg, and Nate Berkus, coming up soon. Next month's guest is design star and NYSET alumna Laura Hodges. We can't wait. Sponsors, board members, and subscribers, as well as our producers from Zipline for making tonight's show possible. For your time, I really appreciate it. I'm Dennis Scully. For all of us here at the New York School of Interior Design, stay safe and healthy, and we'll see you next time.